Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time, as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Today I want to talk about some retro games that I originally missed on the PlayStation, that I've actually talked about in a previous video, that I finally got to play in a remastered version later on. That's going to be the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. I guess these are more of a remake than a remaster. I know they're kind of dubbed as a remaster, but they definitely are a remake. And there are a couple big differences between this and the original that I learned about after reading some reviews and seeing some videos on it. The first big thing is that all three games in the Insane Trilogy have a unified movement mechanic. And by that I mean they all have the same kind of momentum and the same kind of jumping mechanics. Whereas in the original three, they differed from game to game. They kind of changed them over time to make them more smooth or feel a little bit better, but they unified them for this. So for people that played the original, I guess they feel that I think they utilize the Crash 3 movement, the momentum and the jumping, and playing that, if you play the original Crash 1 and 2, it feels a little janky. So that is something to consider if you haven't played the Insane Trilogy, but you did play the originals. You will be using the third game's movement mechanics for all three games. So that's something to take into consideration. But since I didn't play it, I didn't really have any troubles with that since this is my first exposure to the series. And it is fantastic. I will say straight up, I really enjoyed my time with the Crash Bandicoot Trilogy. It is also one of the most frustrating experiences I have ever had, specifically because I'm a completionist for the most part. I like to do as much as I can in a game. I'll give up if there's too many trophies that don't feel like they add any value, or if there's stuff that I just really don't want to do. I won't do everything just for the sake of doing everything, but I like to, especially in platformers and collectathons. Stuff like that really, I just want to check off those boxes and get them done. So I felt a big drive to complete each of the Crash Bandicoot games, and oh man, did it take me a long time because of that. And first and foremost, we'll start off with Crash Bandicoot 1, the one that started it all, Naughty Dog's original 3D platformer. Man, is this game just really, really good. It starts off, you're Crash Bandicoot, you're on a beach, you get up and you start going through the first level. You break boxes, you spin on enemies, you jump over obstacles and over death traps, and you make it to the end of the level and you warp out. And that's the whole premise of the thing is you're going through these levels, trying to break boxes, beat enemies, and not die. But you will die quite a lot in this game. It is brutally difficult platforming for sure. You're playing as Crash Bandicoot, who is a failed experiment from Dr. Neo Cortex, who is sending all sorts of animals and bosses at you to try and stop you from getting to him, where you can fight him and finally destroy him. So Crash Bandicoot 1, very simple. It's a mascot platformer just like Mario and Sonic. This was Sony's answer to those franchises, and it really made a huge splash. It was a fantastic first entry, and Naughty Dog really outdid themselves in terms of like making a splash in the scene. You're going up against Sonic and Mario already. That's a huge undertaking, along with a brand new console. But Crash really holds its own really well. The game is quite long. There's a ton of stuff to do, lots of bonuses to find, secrets to unlock. Getting all the boxes in each level grants you different gems. You can get colored gems to unlock secret areas. There's just a lot going on in this game and the subsequent Crash games as well. But the basic concepts are pretty simple. You go through the level, you break as many boxes as you can, and you get to the very end, and you get rewarded for how many boxes you broke, and sometimes for not dying throughout the level as well. Sometimes it's a combination of the two. Like I talked about earlier, getting all the gems, all the colored gems will unlock lots of secrets and lots of new things for you to experience in this game. I do recommend trying your best to do everything in this game because you'll be rewarded quite handsomely for it. You'll get lots of bonus levels. You'll get lots of secrets. The game constantly rewards you for going out of your way to master the platforming, to master the game mechanics, but it will take a long time. There's also time trials. Now, these are probably the most infuriating. I believe they've changed it since I originally played Crash 1 on the Insane Trilogy. But initially, to get the Platinum Trophy, you had to do all the Platinum Relics on all the time trials. The Platinum Relics were ridiculously hard. They were exceptionally time tight. Some of the boxes that you break turn into yellow boxes with different numbers on them from 1 through 3, and breaking those will stop the clock for that much time, so that many seconds in the game. And so a lot of these levels were super tight with their timers and made for an incredibly frustrating experience. Some of the levels that took upwards of 3.5 minutes to beat, along with like the slowing down the timer, were absolutely infuriating to lose. I remember spending a lot of time on one specific level. I don't remember the name of the level now, but it was awful. It took me so long and made me so angry that when I finally finished Crash 1, I didn't move on to Crash 2 for years because I had to take a break from the game. It is that brutally difficult. Doing all the boxes, all the time trials, getting everything that you can in this game will take a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of willpower. And I don't know if it's worth it, but I ultimately enjoyed myself. Excuse me. I ultimately enjoyed myself much more than I was frustrated. And I say that with I was frustrated a ton, but my enjoyment ultimately superseded. And that's because the game is so well designed. I really, really love this game. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention, yeah. Originally, the trophy was get all the platinum relics. I think they've changed it now to getting only gold relics. Because I saw that in 2 and 3, and I'm pretty sure they were platinum before. So it made the game substantially easier to get the platinum trophy. But when I did Crash 1, I got all the platinum relics for every level, including the final bonus DLC level that was like a cut level from the original, but that they put back into the game. Even that terribly hard level with a even more strict timer. I did end up getting the platinum relics on all of those. And Crash 1 is exceptionally fun because of how well designed it is, because of how well the mechanics work, because of how difficult it is, honestly. Because it's a lot like the Souls series. Succeeding in Crash, finishing a level 100% is so satisfying because of all the time you put into it, the blood, sweat, and tears you put into the game. Crash Bandicoot ultimately rewards you by giving you that satisfaction. I love the original Crash Bandicoot game. I'm going to give it a platinum rank and say that it's a must for all platinum platforming game lovers. Let's move on to Crash 2. I think this one is probably the weakest of the trilogy. They added a lot of new mechanics to the game. This is where they kind of branched into new ways of moving around. There are jetpack levels that are all insanely frustrating, but it is a new way of moving. Instead of going around on a three-dimensional plane, but ultimately platforming everywhere, now you're flying around with obstacles coming at you at these auto-scrolling levels. They are difficult, and I remember getting very frustrated. My daughter could probably remember as well, us both getting frustrated at these levels and how long they were and how boring they got once you had to replay them over and over. And I think that's where Crash 2 ultimately drops the ball just a little bit compared to Crash 1. It is mostly really tight. The new mechanics are actually really strong for the most part. Again, the jetpack levels aren't my favorite, but other stuff like being able to slide and jump and get more distance is actually really cool. At the end of the game, once you beat it one time, you get the running shoes, which makes the time trials way more interesting. You actually can't beat a lot of the time trials and get the gold ranking or the platinum for them because you need to be able to run, which is just holding down a button. But now all of a sudden Crash runs everywhere instead of just getting his normal speed. That's a nice dimension that they added to the game to make it more dynamic and cool. I think that it works pretty well, but sometimes it just doesn't feel as well executed. There are some levels that I remember just getting frustrated and not feeling happy when I finally beat them. The reward was not better than the frustration that I had. But I would say maybe 90% of the game you do feel rewarded, and it's actually not quite as difficult as Crash 1. Some of the things that they implemented make the game a little bit easier. I think that's a welcome change. Crash 1 was incredibly difficult, and Crash 2 lets up just a little bit while still keeping a lot of the difficulty and the tight platforming. I'm going to give Crash 2, since it's so similar to Crash 1, I won't really get into it too much more than that. Crash 2, I'll give a gold ranking. I wanted to maybe go down to silver, but I think the game overall is just too good, and the frustrating parts weren't that bad. Now, Crash 3 was also very, very good, very strong. I think it was better than Crash 2, not as good as Crash 1 for me at least. And that was for one specific reason, the vehicle sections. I hate vehicle sections. Now, in the original Crash, you got these ones where you ride on animals and you have some obstacle coming at you. The first two games, you've got stuff like that where it's it's fairly interesting. I like the running away from something, a big boulder coming after you. I think that's kind of fun. But I do not like the bike levels specifically. There are levels where you get on a motorbike and you have to race against UFOs, against other cars. They're just not very fun. They're just so frustrating. And they're the only really bad blemish on Crash 3. Everything else they actually implement very, very well. That there's tighter platforming, the levels are really great, the challenge is really strong without being crazy difficult. I think Crash 3 balanced everything so well, but those vehicle sections are so stupid, especially when you're going for time trials. It's another one of those things. The hitboxes on some of the boxes you need to break and the regular levels are inconsistent, or it feels like you miss them sometimes for no good reason. The AI from the enemy cars doesn't feel super great. Sometimes it feels really random, sporadic. It can just be frustrating, and those levels alone really ding it for me. Otherwise, Crash 3 would be so good. Boss designs are fantastic. I think the storyline is really good. Having this evil mask. Didn't even talk about the masks. In the original, in all 3 Crash games, if you break these masks with Aku Aku, your friend, and this tiki mask that follows you around. If you break 3 of them, you get to wear him and you get invincibility. And it also speeds you up. It's vital for a lot of the time trials, actually. Gives you invulnerability, makes you really fast, and it lasts for a long time. It's actually super cool. In the 3rd game, there's an evil mask that is going up against you and goes off with Neo Cortex to try and fight against Crash and his team. They also have new playable characters. You have Coco in this game. I can't remember if she's playable in 2 or in 1. I think in the Insane Trilogy, I think she's playable in all of them. I think you unlock Coco toward the end of the first one. Maybe you get her. I don't remember. But I think in the original, Coco was introduced in 2 or 3. But she's a playable character. In some of the levels, she's actually required to play. She also has her own vehicle sections, like the ski, like a jet ski section. Hers are actually more fun, but again, are kind of annoying just because they're not so tightly made. They just feels kind of janky sometimes. But playing as Coco can be a lot of fun. Just those vehicle sections and even the riding the animal sections in this game specifically just aren't executed the best way they could possibly be. And that can be frustrating for me. But overall, Crash 3, just like Crash 2, has way more amazing things that counteract the frustration that comes from those specifically vehicle sections. The platforming is actually out of this world tight. I think their level design is probably the best it's ever been in this game. Crash 3 is fantastic, and it was a really great way to cap off the original trilogy. I'm going to give Crash 3 a gold rank as well. So for the entire trilogy, I'm going to give it a gold rank, evening it out right in the middle. I don't think Crash 1 is strong enough to sway the other 2 rankings, so I think a gold rank for the Crash, Bandicoot, and Sane trilogy is appropriate. If you're going for full completion, you will be in for a world of hurt. It takes forever. It is really hard. Even as a seasoned platformer, I pride myself on being really, really good at platforming games. I always have been. I've been playing them since I was little. I have a knack for them. But man, is it difficult to master these games. They will put you through the ringer and test your every bit of patience that you have. So if you're going for full completion, good luck. You're going to be needing to invest a ton of time into this game. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.